If there is one thing to unite this world, it is the hatred of small talk. It doesn't matter if it's a corporate company event or maybe it's just a weekend networking. It can be terrible. It can be downright scary at times. So how do you do it and how do you get better at it? Well, I got you. Today we're talking all about how to never struggle with small talk. Small talk, it's gross. So how are we going to fix that? Let me give you some hints. Number one, instead of just asking, how's work? How's home? Those kind of questions just fall flat. They do nothing for you. They don't move the conversation at all. Instead, we're going to switch it to ask questions that are action oriented. That means questions about the doing. So instead of how's work? How's home? How are you? You're going to be asking questions like, what did y'all do this weekend? What do you have coming up? Getting things that they're excited about. What are you excited about today or tomorrow or this week? When you say, what are you doing or going? Those are action-oriented things, and they're going to help push the conversation forward. Number two, now what matters is how you do it. If you notice, I didn't say, do you have anything going on this weekend? Because how are you going to respond to that? You're going to respond to that as either a yes or a no. That's it. When you ask questions typically that are did or did you have fun today? Did you have a good day? When you ask your kid when you pick them up from school, did you have a good day? You're really only giving them a few options to say yes or no. When you ask questions that are closed, that's what they're called, closed-ended questions. They only leave you hardly anywhere to go. It's just a yes or no question. Did you go to the store? Yes or no. Instead, you're going to be opening it up with asking and beginning the phrase or question with what. What, you see how we say, what did y'all do this weekend? Or instead of, did you have fun this weekend? You hear the difference between what did you do for fun this weekend versus did you have fun this weekend? One invites you to open up. The other closes it down and ends the discussion. So anytime that you can, I want you to ask an open-ended question. You do that by beginning with what or how or when, because it gets them to continue to talk. That's what you're after. And also, number three, if you find that you just don't have that much to talk about, or it starts to go downhill and you finding that each of your responses are getting shorter and shorter, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. People feel like there has to be a certain amount of time for it to count as small talk. No, if you just say hello to the person and you engage maybe in one little back and forth, that's small talk. You've done it. Congratulations. There's no medal. There's no reward. There's nobody counting and timing you to see how long you've been talking. Just if the conversation comes to a natural end, then just say, hey, great to talk to you, and politely end the conversation. Don't feel like you have to keep pushing and pushing to have some green check flag to say, I have accomplished small talk. It's a lot less than you think to make that happen. All right, now on top of making sure your questions are action-oriented, asking about the going, the doing, what they're excited about, what's up ahead, what's going on in the future, on top of making sure that you're asking open-ended questions that are leaving lots of space and begin with what, how, and when, and not did, that's going to close things off. On top of that, there's a formula that I'm going to teach you real quick, and it has always worked for me, and I know it can work for you too. This is how it goes. Number one, you just pick a topic, any topic, to talk to this person about. So let's say it's as boring as the weather. You could say, and this weather was crazy. This weather can't make up its mind today. They're going to come up with something. They're going to say, yeah, oh, I know, yeah, right? It's crazy. They're going to acknowledge you in some way. Perfect. You have now set the stage for you to give options. I like to think of it as a poll, and a POLL, meaning you're going to say, for example, in this example, you can say, so are you a fall person or are you a winter person? You like it hot or you like it cold? Or maybe it can be summer or winter. Are you a fan of summer or do you like it cold? Or would you rather be too hot or too cold? You're giving them options. That's the key, options. Because options give us something to talk about rather than just forcing it down one chute and hoping that it works. So if I were to say, are you like the beach in summer or are you more like you like the mountains and the snow? they're going to give you one. They're going to give you one option. They're not going to just leave you hanging. Or they might just say, you know what, I really like spring. Spring's kind of my thing. It reminds me of blah, blah, blah. Well, then you get to interact and say, well, I totally hear you. I happen to be a fall person because it makes me think of football and Thanksgiving. And here in America, we have Thanksgiving in November. And so that's what I really like. And then you get to kind of interact with them and say, well, what about you? And now you're getting to get to know them on just a little bit deeper level, because here's the trick on this formula, is why it works for me, at least, is that when you share something that is more personal about you, 99% of the time, it then opens it up for the other person to share something a little bit more personal about them, because they feel like, oh, well, you've shared something and now I'm going to share something. It's very it creates kind of this mutual contract that's hidden in a way that if I share a little bit about me and what's personal to me and what I like, you're then going to feel a little bit more comfortable sharing more personal things about you. And that's what you're curating in that experience. You can take it wherever you want to go, but that's the formula. It's that simple. Pick a topic, create options for them. Maybe you create 2 options, at least 2, maybe 3 or 4, and then you share something as to which one is your favorite, and then ask them, what about you? Even the question, what about you, continues to open things up in the dialogue, and it never can really go wrong that way. I mean, they call this small talk, not big talk. It's just something short, compact that you left at, oh, okay, I learned a little bit more about this person. And it's something that you can knock out really in just an elevator ride. It's very quick, very easy. Let's say you're coming off into the elevator straight from some rain or whatever. You can easily just open it up talking about really the weather, the news, whatever you want. Try that. And because this episode is about small talk, I'm going to keep this episode small. So let's go ahead and get into my favorite part of the podcast, and that's where I get to read a question from a follower. Those that are part of my newsletter are able to ask me questions by email, and I'm able to answer them. So if you're not part of the newsletter, you can sign up. The show notes are the link for it is down there in the show notes. All right, this one I have picked one out. This is, let me pull it up. This is Linda, and she lives in Lubbock, Texas. Linda from Lubbock. I think there's a country song in there somewhere. I went to law school in Lubbock, so I'm very familiar with it. Linda says, Jefferson, I need some advice. Thank you so much for your clips. You're very welcome, Linda. I work at I'm not going to say where she works, but I have networking events, and I tend to absolutely clam up, where I stand in the corner and I'm not sure how to approach anyone or to get to a point where I feel comfortable talking to anyone. Do you have any advice? Linda, I'm sorry you're having trouble with that, and that's absolutely okay. Absolutely okay, because what makes you special is what makes you you. So just because you're not going around talking to every single person that is in the room, Linda, does not make you any less special or important or of less value. You find that people can talk a lot and say nothing at all. All right, so a lot of the times these networking events are really just more of a social dance, in a way of just finding who's comfortable with who and who's friends and who's not. So I don't want you to overthink it, but I know that's not all that helpful. So Linda, I'm going to try to say some things that are. So when somebody is talking with you, one thing that you can do, that I like to do, is I will, it becomes subconscious, but if you want to find that you're more engaged with people and get kind of curious with people, physically, one thing that you can work on is I like to slowly, you just kind of cock your head a little bit to the side. That makes it look like you're much more interested in what they have to say, rather than just like, I just want to talk to you. So you don't want to have crazy eyes. You don't want to have it to where you feel like you're in front of their face. You're just kind of at a distance where your shoulders are relaxed. You feel relaxed. It helps me if you're holding something, especially these networking events. Everybody kind of expects you to have something in your hand. It does not have to be a drink. It can be a snack. It could be any kind of refreshment that they have, but it keeps your hands busy. And that's why I'm saying it, because it keeps your hands from having to like fiddle with themselves, or maybe you don't know what to do with them, so you kind of cross them. When you hold something, it keeps your stance open. And what I'm going to encourage you to do on top of that is to just barely slide your head to the side, either side. It doesn't matter, the left or the right, but it gives this posture of wanting to kind of be curious. And when you smile and you're asking questions and they start to respond, if you can just move your head just a little bit to the side, it's going to open them up as if, hey, you're being a little bit more curious about them to have more conversation. Another thing that's going to help, Linda, is understanding that don't go into these events thinking you have to talk to every single person. Like there's a win and a loss kind of thing. There's something to win and lose. That's not it. If you can just go in with the idea of just talking to one person, yeah, it's that basic. Just one person and having a good conversation with them. I would rather trade 20 little small talks that mean nothing at all versus one awesome conversation with somebody that I want to talk to. Every time. I'll trade that every single time. So when you're going into these types of scenarios, Linda, it's going to help you if you already know who's going to be there, and you make sure that you go talk to that person. If it's a friend, awesome. That's great. The biggest thing is that people just see you around. They see that you're having a good time. But if you're closed off in a corner, even if you're talking to somebody and you just have you have a closed off posture, your arms are closed, your shoulders are hunched, and you're kind of turned off to the group, they're going to find that a little bit more, it's going to signal at least that you're not wanting to talk to anybody. Maybe you don't, but you ask the question, how can you get better at that? Keep a much more open stance and go in trying to think of just one or two people that you want to make eye contact with and conversation with. It doesn't mean you have to plan out these conversations ahead of time. You certainly can. And what I would encourage you to do is take some of the things that I said at the beginning of this episode of go up to somebody, say hi. I assume it doesn't matter if you know them or not. And you can ask them the question of what was something exciting happen in your week? What's exciting in your life right now? See, it's just one question right there. What's exciting in your life right now? Easy. And you let them talk. And then once they share it, you share something that's going on and exciting in your life. You can't just ask a question and then expect not to have any kind of answer of your own. So it's that kind of that back and forth, that mutual contract that I talked about, Linda, that's going to make sure that you are keeping the ball rolling in the air. And it is much easier for you to end the conversation. This would be point 3 for you. If you feel that the conversation is starting to run low, get out fast. Say, hey, it's been great to talk to you. I'm going to go grab something to eat or drink. Whatever it is, I'm going to run to go see whatever. It doesn't matter. The biggest thing is if you can end the conversation on a high note rather than forcing each other to talk when you really are kind of done talking to each other and then leave the conversation, well, now you kind of drained each other. So if you can, try to leave the conversation on a high note. So if they responded to your what's most exciting in your world today, and they give you an awesome answer, you say, oh, that's fabulous. Ask maybe another question about it. Go, oh, that's fantastic. And if they don't ask anything of you, typically they should. They should. But if they don't, that's cool. We'll just say, well, that's awesome. Well, I'm super proud of you. That sounds really exciting. It's great to talk with you. And then you leave. And now you've left on a high note. Now, Linda, you've made a good impression because all you do is talk about them, and they're really gonna like that. So, Linda, those are just some quick takeaways. But at the end of the day, you just do what makes you special. All right, you do what makes you you, and if it makes you uncomfortable, don't do it. You stick with what feels good in your lane and what resonates and feels right to you. You don't like them, and you definitely don't want them. But sometimes, no matter what you say, you find yourself getting sucked into them anyway. But with what I'm about to show you today, you're gonna handle them like a pro. Today's episode is all about how to handle unwanted conversations. If you want to avoid an unwanted conversation, number 1, don't fight them, because the more that you do, the more you're going to find yourself in one. Instead, just let it go by. You do that by making yourself sound, well, disinteresting. This is what I mean. When somebody's pushing an opinion onto you, any controversial topic, whether it's religion, politics, whatever, they're trying to push something onto you, and you say, yeah, I don't know. Simple as that. Yeah, I don't know. Or, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. You're finding ways to communicate to them of, if you're looking for a fight, you're not going to find one here. Number 2, this one is the easiest, but it's the most critical. You are making them feel heard. It's just simply acknowledging their point, and it's very simple to do. This is what it sounds like. I agree that's an issue. Period. Somebody's wanting to get all worked up and they're telling something to you. All you need to respond is, yeah, I agree that's an issue. I agree that's an issue. You're not saying whether you agree with it or disagree with it. If anything, they just feel acknowledged and heard, and they say to themselves, oh, okay, they understood and heard what I said. And number 3, if you need to be a little bit more direct, you need to tell them that you're not interested in this conversation. If they're not getting the point, here's the way I suggest to do that. You say, I typically avoid this topic. The key word is typically. Yeah, I typically avoid this topic. Or I typically try not to talk about X, Y, and Z. The key here is when you say typically, you're communicating if I've had this conversation before, it's not really stimulating to me anymore, so I avoid this topic altogether. You're not saying that they're wrong. You're not giving them a fight. You're not giving them anything for them to bare their teeth on. You're just simply saying, I tend to avoid this. I typically don't do this. And I'm going to give you a disclaimer on this episode, particularly when it comes to political topics. I'm all in favor of educating yourself and making sure that you know about the issues out there. I think you should absolutely exercise your right to vote. No questions asked. That's a different question on whether or not somebody is allowed to force their opinion onto you and say whether they're right or wrong, or if you're supposed to push your opinion back and always have these discussions where you know it's just beating your head against a wall. If this person is open-minded and it's a discussion that you enjoy having, and people have political discussions all the time and there's no issues, but other people, it's not so much about change. They don't care about the change, they care about the competition. It's like a sport to them. It's like arguing over their favorite sports team. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Day to day, the ultimate consequence of the discussion and who wins makes no bearing, no change on their life. It's just something that they feel like a team on. So they want to have this discussion of intellect to intellect or just issue to issue, and they just want to talk it out. All kinds of different reasons why these kind of topics should or may come up in your life. The key is, how do you balance them? The reason why I have number 1 be to pass it by is because it's that idea of don't attend every argument you're invited to. Just because somebody pushes their opinion onto you to talk about any controversial topic does not mean that it's an invitation for you to mandatorily give your opinion right back. Whenever you decide, you know what, I want to push against you, actually, I don't agree with that. You can disagree all you want. Just know you're walking right into the conversation. It's no longer an unwanted conversation. It is a desired conversation now that you're giving your opinion. If you want to avoid these, then you need to just let them pass by. I say disinterested or be disinteresting because in many ways you're taking all the oxygen out of the room and their fire can't burn. They have nothing to get upset about because you're not giving them anything to jump onto. You're finding ways to say, you know what, I don't know about that. You know what, that's a good question. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure. It's not that you don't have your own opinion. It's not that you're uneducated. It's just you're not in a mood to say, you know, I don't want to get in this conversation right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. When it comes to agreeing with them, understand nobody can make you agree to something you don't want to agree to. Nobody can force you to say something you don't want to say. But it's critical that these kind of people, when they're pushing these unwanted conversations, just feel heard. Often, if they just feel acknowledged in some way, they're going to go away. Not only have you made yourself disinteresting, they know they're not going to get anywhere with this. They know that you're not going to give them that fight and that excitement that they're looking for. They just want to feel acknowledged. So when you can say things like we mentioned in number 2 of, I agree that's an issue. I hear you. Simple as that. I hear you. I agree that's an issue. I agree. That's all you have to say. Even if you disagree with them, you're just making them feel heard. But if they continue to push and press on you to make you feel uncomfortable in some certain way, don't hesitate for 1 second to say, I prefer, or I typically. You're talking about what you do in the past. I prefer not to talk about X, Y, and Z. I typically try to avoid topics about blah, blah, blah. You can make it even situational. I typically avoid topic X at dinner, or at home or at work. You make it situational where you are in your environment. Simple as that. And if they continue to press the button, it's absolutely okay to say, I'm not going there. Period. I'm not going there. You're saying, I'm not going into this conversation. I've given you plenty of lead-ups. I've given you signs that I'm not interested in this. That means I have to be explicit with you. I'm not interested in this conversation. I typically don't enjoy talking about topics of X, Y, and Z. This subject matter isn't for me. That subject isn't for me. You find ways to, if they're not going to be taking the signs, be very direct with them to say, I have a boundary here. I'm not going to be goaded into this. I'm not going to be led into this conversation. I'm not going there. Now we're at the part that's one of my favorite parts, and that is I'm going to answer a question from a follower. If you're not already part of my weekly newsletter, I send one email once a week right to your inbox on a communication tip. And those that are on the newsletter can email me questions, and I'm able to answer it here on the podcast. So I have my other phone here, and this one that I picked is from Sammy. Sammy is in Florida. He says, hey, Jefferson, love your tips. I have an issue with work. There is a boss that I have who always likes to talk about whether it's gossip or politics, whatever it is, he's always wanting my input on it, and I'd rather not give it. It's not that I don't have an opinions, I'm just not that much of a social person, and it makes me uncomfortable. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Sammy, I feel you, man. So anytime, let me give you an example of what's this making me think of in my own world is I'd have these conversations with my grandfather. I'd go up every summer to see him, and it never failed. And this happened definitely in the last 5-10 years or so, where I'd start to come talk to him, and every time he'd turn the conversation to politics or some issue that I did not want to talk about. It's not that he and I agreed on some things. We also disagreed on some things, but that's all he ever wanted to talk about. It just kind of consumed his mindset. This is what I'm going to encourage you to do, Sammy. Often the issue that you hear is not the real issue. All right. It's not the political issue that they want to talk about, or that, let's say maybe he's oversharing, or there's gossip, there's something else. It's not that. It's an underlying layer. I'll continue on with my grandfather example. My grandfather is the type that, he doesn't see a whole lot of people day to day. And so whenever I'm coming around and I'm giving him my full attention, I might be the first person he's really been able to talk to that day, and he wants to get out everything that's on his mind. There's also that element of he kind of wants to, there's people out there who want to feel impressive with their knowledge, regardless of what side of the fence anything is on. It doesn't mean it's political, not political, or religious, or any other controversial topic. They just want to share that they're knowledgeable about a given topic. So I'm going to encourage you to look behind the issue. Why does he continue to come to you with this boss or manager, Sammy? Why does he continue to come to you with this? Is it that he's just looking for other conversation with you? Maybe it's he just wants to have some kind of interaction with somebody, especially if it varies.